unaware he owned the company her entire family worked for. Wife poured dirty water on husband at the gala, calling him a loser. What he did next crushed them completely. "I don't know why you showed up here, Nathan. We are celebrating success, not charity for unemployed losers. You are not qualified to attend this gala." Those were the venom-laced words Camille Carter said to her husband before pouring a bucket of dirty water over him in front of her co-workers, her secret lover, and her entire family. She had no idea that the man she humiliated was the owner of the company her entire family worked for. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty, pride, and consequences. Viewers, what would you do if your wife emptied a bucket of dirty water on you in front of many people? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The morning light eased slowly into the small apartment Nathan Bennett shared with his wife, painting soft streaks across the living room floor and settling gently on the worn couch they always promised to replace, and the narrow hallway leading to the bedroom closet where Camille was already getting dressed for work. The place wasn't luxury, not even close, but it held a kind of ordinary warmth. Laundry folded on a chair, 2 mugs on the counter, the soft trace of her perfume still hanging in the air. From the window he watched the street below stretch awake. Neighbors walked out with lunch bags and car keys. A school bus rattled by, brakes sighing as it stopped at the corner. A delivery van double-parked, the driver hopping out with boxes stacked in his arms. Out here, Nathan was just another man in an average building on an average block, and to anyone looking up at that window, it would be impossible to imagine the weight he carried on his shoulders. Behind every ordinary morning lay a secret universe. Behind every quiet goodbye, his wife whispered before leaving for work, lay an entire company she never knew belonged to him. Behind every modest shirt, every humble choice, every simple habit, lay the inheritance of a lifetime and a legacy that controlled the jobs, futures, and dreams of over 5,000 people, including his wife, her father, her mother, and her younger brother. Camille stepped out of the bedroom, fastening a small gold earring, her reflection catching quickly in the dark screen of the television as she passed. She wore a fitted cream blouse tucked into tailored black pants, her feet already in sleek heels that clicked lightly against the floor. Her hair was pulled back into a smooth ponytail that made her look sharp and composed, the way she liked to appear at work. "Do I look okay?" she asked, more out of habit than real concern, checking her reflection again in the microwave door. "You look great," Nathan said, and he meant it. She gave a brief smile, grabbed her purse, and reached for her work ID on the table. The badge with the Bennett Dynamics logo shining on plastic. She draped it around her neck and stepped close enough to press a light kiss to his cheek. "I'm heading out," she said. "We have a lot going on in the department this week. Don't forget to pick up something for dinner, please. I might be late." "No problem," he replied. "Have a good day." She was already half turned toward the door when he finished the sentence. The lock clicked. The hallway swallowed the echo of her footsteps, and within a few seconds the apartment dropped into that familiar morning silence, a silence that felt both peaceful and strangely heavy. He waited for a full minute, listening to the fading echo of her heels down the stairwell, then exhaled slowly. He moved through the apartment with practiced calm, picking up his jacket, sliding into his shoes, and stepping out the back entrance of the building. He didn't use the front door in the mornings, not because he feared anyone, but because he'd grown used to separating his lives. The front entrance was ordinary Nathan. The back entrance led to his other world, the world of Bennett Dynamics, the world his father built from nothing, the world he now controlled from behind a quiet veil. His car, a plain gray sedan, sat waiting. No expensive rims, no flashy brand, nothing about it screamed success. He drove through the narrow streets, past local shops opening their shutters, past the school bus squealing to a stop, past the coffee shop where teenagers gathered every morning. The city woke around him in layers, honking horns, rising chatter, the smell of fresh bread drifting from a bakery. But 50 minutes later, he turned onto a private road lined with tall trees that blocked out the city's noise entirely. The pavement here was smooth, the air quieter, the houses beautiful and spaced far apart. At the end of the long road stood the Bennett Villa, its wide stone exterior and sweeping verandas, holding the weight of a legacy that had existed long before he was born. The security gate recognized his plate and opened automatically. He drove up the long driveway, passing trimmed hedges, a quiet fountain that murmured gently, and the tall windows that reflected the morning sky. Inside the villa, the staff greeted him with soft respect. They knew him well, not as the modest man who lived in an apartment, but as the heir to the company that shaped half the city's economy. They knew the truth behind his quiet clothes and simple lifestyle. "Good morning, Mr. Bennett," a housekeeper said with a small nod. "Morning," he replied warmly before heading to the west wing. Past a narrower hallway and behind a solid wooden door with frosted glass lay the real nerve center of Bennett Dynamics, the office his father had built inside the family home once the company outgrew its first downtown headquarters. It didn't look like a boardroom. It looked like a war room redesigned for business. Screens lined the walls, showing graphs, maps, and live feeds from factories and offices. A long desk dominated the center of the space, stacked neatly with folders, tablets, and a laptop already awake on the home screen. On top of the desk sat a familiar stack of files. The morning reports. He took a seat, pulled the first file closer, and opened it. While Nathan opened the first file in the villa, miles away, Camille walked into Bennett Dynamics carrying a version of herself she never brought home. Inside the building, she was not Camille Bennett. No one there even knew that name existed. She was Camille Carter, ambitious, confident, admired, and deliberately single. She stepped through the lobby with her wedding ring tucked safely in the small zip pocket of her purse, the same pocket she hid it in every morning right before entering the building. Her finger carried no sign of a husband, no sign of commitment, no sign of loyalty. Her coworkers believed she was focused on her career and uninterested in settling down. They had no idea she walked out of a husband's apartment every morning. As she rode the elevator to the 7th floor, she opened her phone and saw a message from her secret lover, Derek. Room booked for after work. Same place. Her lips lifted into a quiet, pleased smile. "Camille, I wouldn't miss it." She slipped her phone away just as the doors opened. On the 7th floor, people smiled and waved at her with the kind of friendliness given to someone well-liked. She responded with the warm, polished charm they were used to single. Flirty in a subtle way. Someone who enjoyed attention. Her coworkers often teased her that she was too pretty to stay single for long. She always laughed it off with a light joke. Not one of them suspected she wore a wedding band at night. She sat through meetings with practiced professionalism, her face calm as she presented campaign results, discussed budgets, and cracked a few well-timed jokes that made the room lighten. She was good at her job, confident, sharp, socially smooth. Everything she believed her boring husband at home was not. When work ended, she packed up slowly, waiting just long enough for most of her coworkers to leave before sending one quiet text. "Camille, I'm ready." Less than a minute later, Derek was in the lobby, wearing a gray jacket. She grabbed her bag, slid her phone inside, and walked out with an unhurried stride, as if she were heading straight home like everyone assumed. But instead of turning toward the train station, she crossed the lobby and stopped beside the tall man waiting near the revolving doors. Outside, the early evening breeze brushed through her hair as they stepped toward the side of the building where his dark SUV waited. He opened the passenger door for her, and she slid into the seat with the practiced familiarity of someone who had done this far too many times to pretend it didn't mean something. The moment the doors closed and the city noise faded behind tinted windows, the silence shifted, no longer professional, no longer polite. "Long day?" he asked, his hand resting on the gear shift in a way that made it very clear this was not an innocent ride. "Very," she said, leaning her head back against the seat. "I needed this." He drove out of the company lot and merged into traffic, one hand on the wheel, the other brushing against her knee now that they were out of sight. She didn't stop him. She didn't flinch. She simply let the silence settle as he headed west, away from the company, away from the coworkers who believed she went home alone, away from the husband who was already back at their small apartment preparing dinner for a woman who had no intention of coming back early. 15 minutes later, they pulled into the private parking lot of a familiar hotel, the kind with tinted glass, discreet entrances, and staff trained to mind their own business. This wasn't their first time here. It wasn't even their 10th. As they stepped inside, the receptionist nodded without asking for names. The room was already booked. Already paid for. Already waiting. Camille walked ahead with quiet confidence, lifting her hair off her neck as they entered the elevator. Derek moved closer, lowering his voice. Been thinking about you all day. She smiled. Not shy. Not guilty, just comfortable. I know. The elevator doors closed, and she left behind the world where she was single. The world that fed her ego. The world she believed belonged to her alone. The apartment was still dark when Camille finally returned that evening, the hallway light spilling over her shoulders as she closed the door softly behind her. Nathan looked up from the stove where he had just switched off the burner, steam rising from the pot of pasta he had prepared. It wasn't a special dinner, but he made the effort every time she said she would be late. He had already set the small table with 2 plates, 2 glasses, and a folded napkin beside her seat. Camille dropped her bag onto the couch with a tired sigh, the kind of sound that didn't quite match the glow still lingering in her expression. Something about her eyes looked strangely bright for someone who had just finished a long day at the office. She kicked off her heels and stretched her toes against the cool floor. "You're home later than usual," Nathan said, stirring the pasta one last time before plating it. "Long day," she answered casually, running her fingers through her hair. "Marketing is ridiculous this week. Everyone wants something." Nathan nodded. "I figured. I made dinner if you're hungry." She glanced toward the table, her expression unreadable for a moment before she managed a polite smile. "Thanks. Let me just get comfortable." She disappeared into the bedroom briefly, emerging again in an oversized t-shirt and leggings, her hair tied up loosely. She sat at the table, across from him, and took a few bites of pasta, chewing absently as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. "How was your day?" she asked, a question spoken lightly, almost automatically. "Pretty normal," Nathan replied. "Quiet, mostly." "That's good." She wiped her mouth and leaned back, exhaling. "I'm exhausted. Honestly, the only thing keeping me going is this stupid gala they're planning." Nathan paused with his glass halfway to his lips. "Gala?" "Yeah," she said, twirling her fork without much enthusiasm. "The company is hosting a huge formal gala in 3 days' time. Staff recognition, promotions, appreciation speeches. Big deal, apparently." He kept his expression neutral, though something shifted quietly inside him. He set his glass down gently. "Will the CEO be attending?" he asked, his tone light. Camille rolled her eyes with an amused smirk. "So they said. Trust me, everyone is losing their minds about it. I can't imagine what the executives are going through. People are already acting like it's the Oscars. And, can spouses come?" he asked casually, calmly, not pushing. Her fork froze in her hand. Slowly, she lowered it onto her plate and lifted her eyes to him with a look that was half annoyance, half disbelief. "Why would you ask that?" she said sharply. "I just thought it might be nice to go with you," Nathan replied, keeping his voice even. "Support you. Be there for your accomplishments. Your family will be there, right?" Her jaw tightened instantly, a small line forming at the corner of her mouth. "Nathan, please don't start." "Start what?" he asked softly. She pushed her plate away slightly. "You know exactly what I mean. This is a formal corporate event. Executives, senior managers, important people. It's a big night for me. I don't want any embarrassment." "Embarrassment?" His brow lifted slightly. "I'd just be sitting beside you." "That's the problem," she said, the irritation now slipping fully through her voice. "I don't want to deal with people whispering or asking questions or looking at me like I brought someone who doesn't belong there." Nathan absorbed her words like someone taking a slow punch, one blow after another, each more personal than the last. "So," he said quietly, "you think I'd embarrass you?" "I didn't say that," she snapped quickly. "You implied it." She huffed, running her hand over her face. "Nathan, this company is full of powerful people. People with money, people with influence, people who've worked their way up. And you don't really fit that world." He swallowed slowly. "I don't fit that world?" She went silent for a moment, her eyes hardening. "This is exactly why I didn't want to bring it up. You always make everything deeper than it needs to be." "I asked one question," he replied, "and the answer is no. You can't come," she said firmly. "I don't want to explain myself to anyone. I don't want to answer uncomfortable questions. I don't want them wondering if I'm what? He asked, voice low. She hesitated, then said the words anyway. If you're out of place, if you're struggling, or between jobs, or, I don't know, whatever impression you give. Nathan inhaled slowly, fighting the sting rising in his chest. So that's how you see me, he said quietly. A problem, a burden. You're twisting it, she said defensively. I'm being realistic. This night matters. My family will be there. My supervisors will be there. The CEO will be there. It's not the night for you to come looking. Simple. Simple, he repeated softly. She stood abruptly, picking up her plate. I'm not arguing about this anymore. Please, Nathan. Just let me have this night without making things messy. He watched her walk to the sink, rinsing her plate as though nothing heavy hung between them. Her shoulders moved with calm certainty, as if the conversation was normal, as if the injury she caused wasn't pulsing silently through the air. Nathan rose from his seat, placing his own plate beside hers carefully. All right, he said quietly, if that's what you want. She nodded without looking at him. Thank you. He stepped away from the kitchen, the apartment suddenly feeling 2 sizes smaller. 3 days later, the Hamilton Grand Hotel shimmered under the glow of tall chandeliers and warm golden lights, its marble floors polished to the point that every heel clicking on them left a soft echo drifting through the lobby. A large banner stretched across the far wall, Bennett Dynamics Annual Staff Gala, printed in elegant silver lettering, surrounded by tall floral arrangements and crisp white drapery. Tonight was the company's most celebrated event of the year. The night employees dressed their best, smiled their brightest, and hoped their names would be called for promotions or recognition. Camille stepped out of the rideshare car like she was stepping out of a magazine cover. Her navy blue gown hugged her figure smoothly, dusted with silver shimmer that reflected every flicker of light. The slit along her leg gave the dress a graceful sway as she walked, her heels striking the pavement with confidence. Her hair was styled into soft waves that framed her face beautifully, and her jewelry sparkled with each movement. Her father, Mark Carter, stood at the entrance with her mother and younger brother Ethan. They had arrived earlier and waited outside proudly, each dressed in formal wear as if the night belonged to them alone. Her father stretched his hands wide when he saw her. There she is, Mark said, beaming. Our star. You look stunning, sweetheart. You outdid yourself, her mother added, brushing a small imaginary wrinkle on Camille's dress. Everyone will be talking about you. Ethan smirked and straightened his tie. You look expensive, sis. Camille smiled, letting their admiration wash over her like warm sunlight. This was her world, people who saw her as rising, glowing, important. She didn't have to pretend here. She didn't have to explain anything. She was the Camille she wished she could be everywhere. Admired, celebrated, free from judgment. Not far from them, standing near one of the crystal pillars, was Derek, her secret lover. He wore a dark, tailored suit that fit him perfectly, his eyes sweeping over Camille with a look he didn't bother hiding. The ballroom lights glinted off his polished shoes and cufflinks as he lifted his champagne glass in a subtle, private greeting meant only for her. Camille's lips curved the slightest bit, and she lifted her chin in acknowledgement. Ethan noticed the direction of her gaze. Inside the ballroom, music floated softly from the string quartet near the stage. People gathered around high tables, laughed, clinked glasses, and admired each other's outfits. Executives mingled with department heads, managers with analysts. Everyone seemed lighter tonight, less weighed down by spreadsheets and deadlines. Camille walked in with her family, taking in the admiration around her. People greeted her warmly, complimenting her dress, making jokes about the big night, and whispering about rumored promotions. She moved gracefully, stopping to chat with coworkers, and at every turn, she felt her confidence swell. She didn't know it yet, but every single one of these people lived inside a structure held together by the man she left at their apartment. Several minutes passed before Mark leaned toward Camille with a puzzled expression. "Where's your husband tonight?" he asked casually. "Did he decide to stay home?" Camille inhaled slowly, careful with her tone. "We agreed he shouldn't come." "Good decision," her father said immediately. "This isn't a night for simple men. This is a grand event." Her mother nodded. The CEO is coming. Important people. Let's not embarrass ourselves. Before Camille could respond, she felt a sudden shift in the air, an inexplicable sense that something was pulling at her chest. She turned her head sharply toward the entrance as if something inside her warned her before her eyes even confirmed it. Standing at the ballroom doors, in the same simple suit he wore everywhere, was Nathan. She froze. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't invited. He wasn't meant to show up. Mark's face twisted in confusion. What is he doing here? Ethan's jaw tightened. Sis, why did you bring him? Camille couldn't breathe for a moment, as if the room had turned colder. Nathan didn't scan the room for her. He simply walked in slowly, quietly, politely greeting anyone who nodded at him. His posture was calm, his expression unreadable. He looked completely out of place among the glittering gowns and polished tuxedos, and the Carter family felt it like a personal stain. Camille's entire body tensed, swelling hot beneath her skin. She excused herself abruptly, walked toward the hallway. Her heels struck the marble floor with sharp, furious clicks. She disappeared behind a narrow corner, breathing hard, eyes burning not with sadness but with fury. She grabbed a cleaning bucket left unattended beside a housekeeping cart. The bucket was half filled with dirty, lukewarm water from mopping, murky, gray, unpleasant. Her fingers tightened around the handle. She didn't hesitate. She marched back into the ballroom with the bucket clutched firmly in both hands. Her steps loud enough to draw attention. People turned slowly, eyes widening in disbelief as she approached Nathan, who was standing near a table reading a small event card. He looked up, his eyes gentle, soft, unaware, and without giving him a second to understand. Splash! The dirty water exploded across his suit, soaking his shirt, dripping from his hair, splattering across the polished floor. Gasps surged through the ballroom like the crack of thunder. One woman dropped her champagne flute. Someone covered their mouth. Camera phones appeared like blinking lights. Camille's voice sliced the silence sharply, loud enough to stab into every corner of the room. I don't know why you came here, Nathan, she shouted. We are celebrating company success, not hosting charity events for unemployed losers. You don't belong here. You will never belong here. And we are done. You will hear from my lawyer. Her father clapped once, satisfied. That serves you right. Ethan smirked cruelly. Finally, my sister made the right decision. Derek stared in shock, piecing together every lie she ever told him. Nathan said nothing. He didn't blink. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply walked out quietly, painfully, carrying the weight of betrayal dripping from his clothes. And the ballroom swallowed his exit with a stunned, trembling silence. The cold air outside the Hamilton Grand hit Nathan like a slap, stinging against the dirty water drying on his skin. He walked steadily down the steps, ignoring the stares from lingering guests who had stepped out for air or a phone call. Their whispers sliced through the night. But he didn't slow down. His shoes carried the weight of a man who no longer had anything left to pretend. He reached his car, opened the door with a hand that shook only slightly, and sat down heavily. The faint smell of chlorine, mop water, and humiliation clung to him. His chest tightened once, sharply, but he forced his breathing to even out. He pulled out his phone and dialed one number. His voice was quiet, controlled, too controlled. It's time, he said. On the other end, the senior executive assistant froze for a split second. Yes, sir. Understood. Convoy will be ready. Nathan hung up, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and turned the key in the ignition. The engine vibrated softly beneath him as he pulled out of the hotel driveway. Once he merged onto the open road, the silence inside the car grew thick enough to hold memories. He hadn't expected them. They came like a tide. He saw the restaurant again, the dim lights, the small corner table where she sat laughing with a coworker long before they were anything. Her smile soft and natural, untouched by the hunger for status that would later consume her. He saw her drop her purse and the way she laughed when he helped pick up the spilled items. He heard her shy apology, felt the early spark of something that made him believe life could be simple. He remembered their first dates, cheap cafes, walks in the park, late-night conversations that made his chest warm. She had been sweet, then open, funny, alive. Not the polished, sharp-edged version of herself she later curated for the corporate world. He remembered the first time she met his father, Richard Bennett. Without knowing who he was, she had been polite but distracted, scrolling on her phone while Nathan and his father spoke quietly across the living room. Richard later pulled Nathan aside, saying gently, "Be sure she sees you, not the life you give her." At the time, Nathan believed she did. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. He remembered the Carters, the Sunday dinners filled with fake smiles and sharper words, her father commenting loudly about real men with ambition, her mother comparing him to Camille's friends' husbands, sighing at his simple lifestyle, Ethan snickering whenever Nathan arrived in his old sedan. Every single one of them had worked for Bennett Dynamics for years, loyal only to their belief that they deserved more. They never suspected the man they mocked signed their paychecks. He remembered sitting in the villa weeks earlier, the thick promotion file open on the desk, his father watching him with careful eyes. He remembered reading through Camille's department review, seeing her strengths, her hard work, her growth. He recommended her for promotion without hesitation. He remembered signing Mark Carter's promotion for department head, signing Ethan's advancement letter, imagining their faces at the gala, imagining revealing himself not with arrogance, but with quiet pride, telling them, "I gave you all a chance. I chose to lift you." He remembered how excited he had been, silently, privately, how he rehearsed the words he would say on stage, how he thought tonight would be the beginning of something healed, something better. Instead, Camille poured a bucket of dirty water onto him. Her father laughed. Her brother cheered. Her lover stood in the back, confused. Nathan blinked hard, forcing the image out of his eyes before the sting could return. He reached his apartment building and parked. The quiet hallway welcomed him with soft shadows. Inside the apartment, everything looked the same as when he left earlier that afternoon. The throw blanket on the couch, the plant she forgot to water, the framed photo from their second month of dating. He didn't stop to study any of it. He walked straight to the bathroom, turned the shower on hot, and stripped off the stained suit. The water washed over him in heavy streams, rinsing off the humiliation but not erasing the memory. He scrubbed until the last trace of the dirty water disappeared down the drain. Then he stepped out and moved to the bedroom closet. At the back, behind the everyday shirts and jeans, hung a garment bag, sleek, black, untouched for nearly a year. He unzipped it slowly. The suit inside gleamed under the bedroom light. Custom-tailored, hand-stitched, the suit of a CEO. He dressed carefully, each button fastening with a calmness that felt dangerous. The cufflinks clicked into place silver, engraved with the Bennett crest. He wore the watch his father gave him on the day he handed over the company. He combed his hair back, revealing the strong lines of his face that simplicity often softened. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see the man Camille dismissed. He saw the man who ran an empire. He stepped outside exactly as the convoy arrived. A line of black SUVs filled the street, engines humming, headlights bright. Executives stood waiting, straightening their ties. Security stepped forward, opening the SUV door. He climbed in. The convoy moved. Back to the hotel. Back to the ballroom. Back to the truth. When the SUVs pulled up to the entrance this time, the energy outside shifted instantly. Guests stepping out for air froze. Valet straightened. Security formed a corridor. Inside the ballroom, the anchor's voice trembled behind the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO has arrived." Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Glasses paused mid-air. Music died instantly. The doors opened. Nathan walked in. Not as the man she mocked, not as the husband she humiliated, but as the CEO of everything she thought she knew. Chandeliers reflected off his suit as he stepped onto the stage with heavy, decisive footsteps. Executives bowed their heads. Employees stared with wide eyes. Camille's knees buckled. Her father stopped breathing for a moment. Her brother's lips trembled. Her lover looked like he wanted to disappear. Nathan walked up to the stage and he lifted the microphone slowly. "Good evening," he said, his voice steady, deep, and resonant. This night was created to honor those who make this company strong. People who work with integrity, who carry the name Bennett Dynamics with pride. His gaze drifted across the employees, pausing on faces he recognized from reports, from meetings, from decisions made behind the villa doors. His voice sharpened slightly. But tonight, he continued, we also saw something else, something that reveals character in a way achievements never can. Camille flinched. Nathan's eyes met hers for one brief second, not with anger, not with sadness, but with a cold, detached understanding. The kind a man reached only after being broken open. I have watched this company for years, he said, and I have learned that respect is not tested on ordinary days. It is tested in moments when people believe no one important is watching. A pointed silence spread through the ballroom. His father's voice echoed again inside his mind. Sometimes you need people to think you are nobody important, so they will act like themselves. Tonight had shown him exactly who they were. Nathan lowered the microphone and nodded to the HR director, who stepped forward with a sealed folder. The papers inside were heavy with consequences, sharp with truth. He read the names clearly. Camille Carter Bennett, Mark Carter, Ethan Carter. The room gasped. But Nathan kept speaking, his tone unwavering. Effective immediately. These individuals are terminated from Bennett Dynamics and permanently blacklisted. This company will not be stained by cruelty. It will not tolerate humiliation. Not toward any employee, and certainly not toward the name Bennett. He closed the folder gently, with a finality that rippled through the ballroom. People watched him not as a CEO, not as an owner, but as a man who had been betrayed in the most public way possible and still stood unshaken. He stepped down from the stage with quiet steps. Derek backed away. Executives bowed their heads. Employees parted for him like water around a steady ship. Camille stumbled forward. Nathan, please listen. Please, just please let me talk. But he walked past her without stopping, past her father trembling in a chair, past her brother who couldn't find his voice, past the co-workers who stood in stunned silence. He walked through the ballroom doors, the sound of his shoes echoing through the hallway, each step sealing the fate of everyone he left behind. Outside, the convoy waited, with engines humming low. He climbed into the SUV. The doors closed. The vehicles pulled away. Behind him, Camille collapsed into sobs. But Nathan didn't look back. Not even once. When Nathan stepped out of the gala into the night, he did not turn toward the street that led to the small apartment he once shared with Camille. He did not look back at the glittering hotel entrance or at the echo of her desperate voice collapsing behind him. He walked straight to the convoy waiting beside the curb, black SUVs lined neatly like a wall of silent strength. Security opened the door. He got in. The car pulled away immediately, leaving the Hamilton Grand and the shattered Carter family behind like a scene closing on a stage he no longer belonged to. The cold air outside blurred into streaks of silver as the convoy moved through the city, taking the route only a chosen few knew, the one leading to the Bennett villa. Inside the SUV, the silence held no pain anymore. Only clarity. Only truth. The man who had walked into the gala had been humiliated. The man who rode away was untouchable. When the convoy finally approached the villa, the automatic gates opened with silent reverence. The long driveway was lit by warm golden lights that cast gentle shadows across the stone facade. Home, not the apartment. This was home. The car stopped before the grand entrance. House staff, already notified, stood by respectfully. Nathan stepped out, their bows following his movement. Richard Bennett stood waiting in the foyer, hands behind his back, posture firm, eyes steady. Age had softened some parts of him, but not his insight. He took one look at his son and knew everything without a word spoken. Nathan inhaled slowly. His father nodded once. You don't have to explain, he said quietly. Tonight, you saw their true nature. A deep exhale escaped Nathan, one he didn't realize he'd been holding. He walked past his father into the villa's quiet depth, and the heavy doors closed behind him, not shutting out the world, but shutting out everything he had left behind. That night, Camille didn't sleep. She sat on her parents' couch with her legs pulled to her chest, still wearing the sequined gown from the gala, now wrinkled and stained with tears. Her mother paced the room, calling Nathan again and again. Her father swore under his breath, dialing every number he could think of. None of them connected. Ethan tried messaging co-workers, but all he heard back was silence. Every attempt to reach Nathan failed. When Camille tried his number, it didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail as if the line no longer existed. Why? Why won't he answer? She whispered, her voice raw. Her mother placed both hands on her shoulders. He's upset. He'll come around. But deep down, they all knew the truth. Nathan had cut them out of his world completely. By the second day, the panic worsened. Camille tried to drive to Bennett Dynamics headquarters, only to find that her employee access no longer worked. Security escorted her out calmly, firmly, without argument. Her father tried reaching old colleagues inside. No one answered. Not one. Only Derek answered, but not in the way she hoped. When she called him, trembling, desperate for reassurance, his voice came back cold and distant. Do you want me to lose my job? For you? Never call me again. The line went dead, and something inside her cracked with a sound she couldn't bear. On the morning of the third day, a quiet knock sounded at the Carter family door. Camille ran to open it, hope flaring blindly inside her chest. But a uniformed courier stood there, holding a sealed envelope. He didn't speak beyond a polite greeting and gave her a paper to sign before handing it over to her. She closed the door slowly, as if afraid of what her hands carried. Her parents gathered around her as she tore open the flap. The first line was enough to make her legs give out. Divorce petition. Camille sank to the floor, pressing both hands to her face as her body shook uncontrollably. Her mother knelt beside her. Her father paced from wall to wall. Ethan stared wide-eyed at the ceiling, unable to process what their lives had become. They had all been erased in one stroke. A month passed, a long, humiliating month, where the Carter name became a warning in every office they tried to enter. Their careers, their reputations, their futures, everything evaporated in silence. The morning of the court hearing arrived gray and cold. Camille stood outside the courtroom wearing a plain black dress, her hands clasped tightly together as if holding herself upright. She had lost weight, lost sleep, lost the confident posture she once carried like a crown. Her makeup was light, her hair neat but lifeless. Her family sat beside her, looking smaller than they ever had in their lives. Nathan walked in with perfect composure, wearing a tailored suit that reflected the quiet authority he was born into. He did not look at her. He did not glance her way. He took his seat with two attorneys beside him. The judge reviewed the documents professionally. Mrs. Bennett, he said, according to the trust established by your husband's father, you have no legal right to any assets. The court cannot grant what does not legally belong to the marriage. Camille's voice cracked into desperate fragments. Your Honor, please, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. I can change, I love him. The judge stamped the documents. Divorce granted, and struck the gravel. Camille swallowed a broken sob as she rose to her feet, her knees almost buckling. She rushed after Nathan before he could reach the hallway. Nathan, please, she whispered, her voice shaking. Look at me, please. Just look at me. He didn't stop. Nathan, I'm begging you, she cried louder, grabbing his sleeve. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Please. Please give me one more chance. Nathan finally turned his head slightly. Not enough to give her hope. Only enough to deliver the truth with devastating clarity. There is nothing left, he said quietly. And there never will be. She broke in front of him. Her knees hit the floor. Her hands covered her face. Her sobs echoed down the hallway. Nathan walked past her, steady, silent, finished. He left the courthouse with the calm of a man reclaiming his life. She remained on the floor long after he disappeared from sight. A woman with no husband, no career, no lover, no future, and no one to blame but herself. He never looked back. Not once. Viewers, do you think Camille deserves a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.